Welcome back, Movie Misfits. Today is Throwback Thursday, aka another segment of Junk Drawer Flix. So let's take a look in our junk drawer and see what goodies we'll be reviewing today. We got a winner, Young Sherlock Holmes, which is currently streaming right now on Amazon Prime. Before we take a retrospective review on this flick, let's take a look at the trailer.
I beg of you, begin an investigation. Based on what? Your imagination.
It was obviously a suicide.
Never trust the obvious one.
Uncle didn't kill himself.
Before a lifetime of adventure came the adventure of a lifetime.
What's your name?
Holmes. Sherlock Holmes.
There's a girl.
Brilliant deduction, Watson.
Steven Spielberg presents Young Sherlock Holmes, directed by Barry Levinson.
There is a clever murderer on the loose, and I am going to find him.
But I might get caught, and that would mean trouble.
You would let trouble ruin an opportunity for adventure. It's only a hallucination. Maybe not.
Oh my God. We're going to kill her.
She's alive!
For whatever reason, this wasn't a big hit at the box office. However, I was a little kid when this came out, so I only knew this movie as far as video rental. How can this film not be a hit? It had all the right people behind it. It had director Barry Levinson, who directed Good Morning Vietnam, directed Rain Man. It was produced by Steven Spielberg, and it was written by Chris Columbus. Not that Christopher Columbus. That Christopher Columbus. So maybe the reason why this movie wasn't a big hit, it had the right people behind it, the right people behind the camera, right people writing it, right people producing it. However, maybe the reason why this film wasn't a big hit because it had no star power. That could be the only reason why I could think of it. And when you think Sherlock Holmes, do you think Benedict Cumberbatch? Do you think Sir Ian McKellen? Do you think Peter Cushing? Robert Downey Jr.? Or do you think Nicholas Rowe? To me, Nicholas Rowe will always be Sherlock Holmes next to Benedict Cumberbatch and Peter Cushing. This story from Young Sherlock Holmes is not one of the original stories from the Sherlock Holmes books. It's actually an original script from Chris Columbus. Supposedly, Steven Spielberg wanted something very original and did not want anything from the actual novels, but wanted something of their own. But Steven Spielberg also wanted to have the Victorian era captured in film. We're introduced to these villains right away in the film. We are seeing them somehow shooting darts into other characters' necks, and it's making the characters hallucinate. And I will say, the special effects in these scenes are pretty good for the 80s. They're even a lot better than most CGI I'm seeing now these days. So you might be thinking this guy's really hallucinating and upset. He's more upset about this food not being the McRib. After making such a big scene and finally getting that McRib, he suddenly has to run home and use the bathroom.
Hey, Dad, look. Bedpans.
Gotta love them 80s. Always adding something scary, some practical effects, always throwing monsters in while they can, and having better CGI than we got in some movies right now. Take that, 2020 movies. So we have our first mystery that young Sherlock Holmes is ready to solve. So we get to see the origin of these two characters first meeting up at school, and already they're destined to be friends. And what I do think is pretty cool in this movie, that Sherlock Holmes being so young, we're introduced to all these supporting characters that actually help mold him into the Sherlock Holmes that we know later on. This guy just built a freaking plane, and you know that's going to be coming into play later on in the movie. Also, like I mentioned, all these little nods that we get from each of these characters that help mold Sherlock Holmes. It's actually pretty cool. Now that I'm older, I'm actually noticing them more now than I did when I was 3 years old watching this movie.
I shall have to rebuild the entire machine.
The entire machine? Won't that be difficult?
Elementary, my dear Holmes. Elementary.
One thing lacking in this movie is the villain. We are not sure who the main villain is. I know that's part of the mystery of the film, so that's something that we're probably not supposed to know until the very end. I do like that the henchmen are pretty cool looking. They kind of look like something out of Mad Max or Weird Science. The only issue with them is that they all have like a uniform. They all look kind of the same. So a lot of the times I was like, is it the same guy like hunting everybody down? I do like that the snooty antagonist at the school is a strong resemblance to James Spader and Mannequin. Gotta love them 80s villains. One of my favorite scenes in this film is actually the church scene where the mural comes to life and jumps off the window. I remember being a kid, being in church and being like, okay, when's St. Francis of Assisi gonna jump off and kick my ass? Actually, I think this mural's come to life way too soon. These church allegations haven't even happened yet. Or it's upset that the priest has replaced the Eucharist with Oreos. I do like Sophia Ward as the love interest for Sherlock Holmes in this film, and as herself is actually a good character in this film and helps the story move along. And her tie-in with the rest of the characters is actually pretty cool too. What I like about these two is their chemistry. This character has just as much chemistry with Sherlock Holmes as Sherlock Holmes has with Dr. Watson. So, she's not just the damsel in distress or just a pretty face, she actually is part of the team as well.
Oh, I see. You're angry because I'm late.
Someone getting between me and my man? And one of my other favorite scenes is the graveyard scene. With these three characters each being stung by one of the LSD darts, each character is having to deal with some sort of trauma that they've been experienced with either in their past or currently dealing with. And this scene's actually pretty cool because we get a little bit of horror, we get a little bit of cutesy horror, and we get a little bit of backstory on Sherlock Holmes himself dealing with some family trauma. I will say that the score that they always play during the ceremonies of the cult is actually very, very cool. As a kid, being 3 or 5 years old, every year I would always go to the video store, and this would be one of the top movies I would rent. I remember always just thinking of the musical score in my head and always being like, ah! To be fair, this was the 80s. Apparently, rituals like this were very common. You had the Kali Ma Temple and Temple of Doom, and you had the pagan ritual down the street from Dragnet.
A small surprise before the ceremony starts?
Why not?
You?
I had a big lunch.
Like I said, we're not supposed to know who the brains of this operation is. However, when we're finally introduced to him, it all kind of makes sense, but you kind of figure out who it is as the movie's going along. So I never knew this about this film in the 80s. Whenever the movie was over and I saw the credits, I turned the TV off or I pulled the VHS out. And even in the 90s, did the same thing. Whenever the credits started rolling at the end of the movie, I pulled the VHS out. Even the early 2000s, when I rented it on DVD, I would turn it off. However, in the past year when this movie was on Amazon, I kept it going after the credits started rolling and did not know that in the 80s they had post-credit scenes. So apparently if you watch this movie all the way to the end after the credits, there's still things going on the screen. And there's actually a cool little credit scene that happened at the end. I would say check this movie out. It's definitely one that fell through the cracks even in the 80s. It's currently streaming right now on Amazon Prime. You'll get your 80s nostalgia. You'll get your Steven Spielberg fix. You'll get your Barry Levinson fix. You'll get your Chris Columbus fix, all in one. This has Spielberg's signature written all over it. It's a fun adventure flick, and it's definitely worth the watch if you like the Sherlock Holmes movies in general. I would definitely check it out. I'm Mike the Movie Misfit. I'll see you at the movies. And please, don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe on my YouTube channel. I'm Mike the Movie Misfit, and I'll see you at the movies in 2021.